जय गजानन। गणेशाय नमस्तुभ्यं। हेरम्बाय एकदन्तिने स्वानन्दवासिने तुभ्यं ब्रह्मणस्पतये नमः। With humble pranams to all Paramacharyas, Acharyas and Gurus. Let us continue with our discussion on Yoga Sara, where we were discussing about the cosmic cycles of the yugas, Chatur Yugas, both at the cosmic level and the smaller solar cycles which were invented, you can say, or the calculations was made in order to facilitate the counting and recording of the happenings during all this period of time, when the Vedas were there, when they were destroyed, when they were reinstated. So to facilitate that, this smaller cycles of 12,000 years were created, whereas for the purpose of calculation, whereas this was after the end of the Krita Yuga and passage of some portion of Treta Yuga of the cosmic cycle. So now Muni is asking, O Padmaja, who were the most powerful Daityas during the Kruta and other Yugas, and who destroyed Vedas and did all these cruel things? Who were they, and which were the regions they captured on earth? Which were the regions that were captured by them on earth? Brahma replied, in the early Kruta Yuga was for about 400 heavenly years. Now, one heavenly year means, one day is equal to 3 our 1 year is equal to 1 day. So 360 days, 360 human years is equal to 1 year, 1 heavenly year. So 400 heavenly years means 400 multiplied by 360 human years. So that was a long period of time. The heavenly years are different and human years are different. So here Brahma is saying Krita Yuga was 400 heavenly years. So it is said that Krita Yuga lasted for about 6,400 years. Treta Yuga, O Munishwara, was for about 2,000 years. Dwapara Yuga was for half of Kruta Yuga, that is 3,200 years, and half of that is the duration of Kali Yuga. During the period of Kali, there will be Daityas, one stronger than the other. In order to win over Brahma, the evil people tried to take over the earth. See, when in the tamasic, from the tamasic portion of the Supreme, these Daityas emerge. So during the Kali Yuga, there will be many Daityas who will be strong, one stronger than the other. So they want to take over the gods. Means they want to start ruling. So they will try to win over whom? They will try to win over Brahma. So the Bhubujurmata Nagar is located to the south of Bhadrashva. Bhubujurmata Nagar. An extremely wicked Daitya named Adi was ruling Jambudvipa. Establishing the Daitya rule, he caused great harm to man. Arrogant in their power, the Asuras went to the Meru mountain. The gods were not getting any food due to absence of any karmas and offerings. Because in Kruta Yuga had ended, in Treta Yuga nobody was performing yajnas because of these Daityas. Under Adi's arrogant rule over earth, the 14 great branches of learning became unavailable to man. Men on earth deprived of the Veda samskaras, Shrutis, Smrutis, Puranas, Karmas, all of them vanished because they were all karmas all vanished because it was all based on these Shruti Smriti, that is from teacher to taught. If anyone was found doing karmas, they were punished. Temples of the Panchayatana Devas were all were occupied by these intoxicated people. The intoxicated Daityas issued orders, that is, intoxicated not necessarily due to, it could be also by drinking of alcohol and such substances, but also intoxicated with pride and arrogance. They ordered the gods to worship them. Under their orders, all men were frightened of their cruelty. They tried to follow whatever was possible of their dharma mentally. Manasa Puja, they tried to keep doing that. Even within those Varna Samskaras started dwindling with passage of time. Sometimes only Sandhya Japa to one's own favorite deity was done. Whoever is a favorite deity, they could do. The Panchayatana Pujas reduced. Manu continued, denoted Manasa Puja to Lord Vishnu. Manu invented the Manasa Puja for Lord Vishnu. Just as we saw, the Manasa Puja to Ganesh was done by Bhrushandi Maharaj. Some Brahmins practiced with great secrecy. They also did Abhisheka with japa of Shiva's name, that is Panchakshara Mantra, 5,000 times. In Vidarbha, the daughter of Daksha king married the lord of the world, Mahadeva at Somnath. That is Daksha's daughter, Sati. Daughter brought the whole world under her through her Leela, because of which the residents of Jambudvipa became a little happy. When she got married to Mahadeva, a little bit of happiness was restored because Shiva and Shakti came together, and so Jambudvip, they became a little happy. But the Munis, out of fear of the intoxicated of these Daityas, went along with the gods to live in the mountains. They did only those karmas on the strength of their tapas, that is penance. Wherever Daityas made their homes, the Veda karmas of both saints and human beings could not be performed. The skillful people under Nrupa's rule performed their daily rituals and ordained puja and yajna to Chakru on earth. Remember, Nrupa was a Manu at that time. And in those days, and even now, there's only one Manu for the entire period. So there was no death. Hearing the death of Adi at the hands of Shakti, when Shakti killed Adi, some of the old people started doing Nama Bhajan of the five with fear. Those who were following, that is Panchayat, those who were following the non-Vedic paths gave them up, and even the non-Vedic people were induced to divert their paths. So that is how Pashanda Marga, Tantra Marga came to be established on earth. They did according to their individual tastes and preferences and started living happily. The Danavas had put obstacles on the path of those who are doing Tantra practices. The Danavas, they tried to put obstacles on their path. They also prevented people from singing bhajans, particularly Shiva bhajans. That was during when Mahadeva's period, where Mahadeva's rule, he was a predominant Ishvara whose rule reigned on the earth, on all the three worlds. So then people sang Shiva bhajans, and where it was sung, and the Munis like Shardula and all, they wrote a number of compositions. Ekadeshiya Marga, which was established for gods by Vishnu earlier, that is being devoted to a single deity, perhaps enchanted the Daityas, who created the 6 types of Buddhist Shastras. Including castes, they came under the influence of Maya and set the Asuras and Danavas on the path of Buddhism. That is when this Buddhism got spread among the Asuras and Danavas also. Tantra and Pashanda Marga was already there, and it started influencing man in the world. Residents of the planet of enjoyment this Bhuloka were set on the Ekadeshiya Marga, that is worshipping one deity. Gandharvas and Devaganas were followers of Mishra Marga, that is mixed path. Man sought shelter under rishis and acharyas who lived in the forest and its neighborhood. A path in contradiction to the Vedic path came into being due to the influence of Kali. The world had to wait for years for appearance of Vignanayaka. Remember, here Brahma is talking about the period before Ganesha, before Vinayaka was born. So that was the period of where on earth we had Daityas, Danavas, gods all inhabiting here, and each of them allotted certain portions. Each of them had, means they were practicing various things, and then one started, when they became more intoxicated, they started ruling over the others or overpowering the others, as a result of which yajna karmas came down, and when yajna karmas were reduced, the gods did not get the food, because that was how they got their nourishment. When they did not get the fruits, so then that their power reduced. So they started shifting to the Himalayas or the forests and the mountainous region. So all this were taking. So when we talk about the period of Rakshasas or those huge what we see in comics and things like that, that was before the period of Vinayaka, before Ganesha was born. So this son was born in Somnath for the benevolence of the people at large. That was when Sati was married to Mahadeva at Somnath in Gujarat. Then that was a time when a son was born to Sati, and that was Ganesha. He was a prince for destruction of Danavas. Now remember, this Ganesha who was born as Sati and Shiva's son did not have the trunk of an elephant. He was a normal human being. Normal, I mean, like the form of man itself. The little boy playfully engaged himself to please his father in order to make munis and gods fearless. The boy saw the establishment of non-Vedic paths everywhere. Ganaka and others saw the Paramatma in the young boy. It was then that this Ganaka and other rishis who were there, who were inhabiting earth, they saw the Supreme Being's reflection in this young boy. Non-Vedic paths were converted by the Lord into Swa Marga. This was the first Marga, Swa, self, the path of the self. This was the ancient path, even before. Now what we have is Advaita and Vishishta Advaita and Pashanda, Tantra, so many Margas we have, but the first Marga was the first was Swa Marga, the path of the self, the non-Vedic path. The ancient path prevented having knowledge of the principles, that is the primordial elements, the tattvas. That was prevented. That was available only for the Veda Marga. Sanaka and other yogis, Ganaka, Mudgala, Bhrigu, all of them established unparalleled path of Ganesh Advaita for the gods as well. All the rishis, they then put together an Advaita Marga, or Ganesh Advaita Marga. The non-Vedics including Chakru, they were all destroyed after that. The boy knew that the Supreme Brahma is omnipresent. So this Prince Ganesha brought the intoxicated Danava king, Daityas and Rakshasas to the battlefields. So it was this Ganesha who fought all these evil beings, and then he established the rule that Swarga should be given to the Devas, that is, heaven should be given to the gods. The Danavas should be given Patal Loka, and earth was to be inhabited for human beings, only by human beings. That was the actual administration, you can say, of, till then there was intermingling movement of all of them all over the place. So this bifurcation or territorial boundaries were given by Ganesha, who was born as prince, to Sati and Mahadeva at Somnath. He created the moon on earth as Rajaputra in a human form. Now, see, this we are talking about times which are unbelievable. It was so far away in history, much of the records are destroyed. We are getting a bare outline in the form of this book. He created the moon on earth as a Rajaputra, as a son. In fact, there is a story of in Somnath where when Shiva went, after Shiva and Sati's marriage, or before Shiva and Sati's marriage, Chandra, the moon, who was to whom 14 daughters, 20 daughters of Daksha Prajapati were given in marriage to Chandra. But he was fascinated by one of Rohini Nakshatra, that he was fascinated. But it was at that time he underwent, due to extreme anger and curse of Daksha Prajapati, he almost died, Chandra. And so it was when he was lying almost dead that Sati prayed to Shiva, and Shiva arrived and gave the Mrityunjaya mantra, which we know as Trembakam Yajamahe Sugandham Pushtivardhanam Urvarkameva Bandhanat Mrityurmukshe Yamamritahat. So it is by chanting this Mrityunjaya mantra that Chandra was revived. And the Chandra was revived here. So that Chandra was actually born to Sati and Shiva at that time at Somnath. So at that time moon was a Rajaputra. Moon on earth as a Rajaputra in the human form to the prevailing dharma. And then, so according to the prevailing dharmas, there was a nurturing of the Varnashrama dharma. Establishing one's own Varnashrama dharma involves repenting of the sins, or repenting for any atrocities that are committed, and accordingly adopting the suitable Varna as a path for purification. So they were permitted to choose a path where they can do atonement of the wrongdoings. So under Ganapa's orders, Bhrigu and others, and after establishing all these respective lokas, the 14 swarga, there are heavens, there are 7 heavens, we say, no? 7 lokas above the earth and 7 lokas below the earth. Those are all patal lokas. These are all swarga lokas for the gods, and those are for the demons, and earth for the human beings. So after establishing all of this, under the orders of Rajaputra, Ganaka, who was the knower of Brahma, proceeded to establish the path of Vedas on the Saptadvipa, the 7 continents on earth. Ganaka Rishi established the Vedas. After which he went on a Vijaya Yatra along with his students. He also divided dharma into dharmas into four categories. During the medieval times of the first Yuga, Vinayaka was born to Parvati and Parameshwara. But after that, Sati immolated herself in the Daksha Yagna. We know that story from Shiva Purana. Then afterwards, to Parvati and Shiva, when Sati was reborn as Parvati, daughter to the Himalayas, Himavan, she became Parvati and she was married to Parameshwara. And Vinayaka, Ganesha, was born as Vinayaka, as their son. After some time, Vedas, Shastras and Puranas that were initiated were completed by the Munis, which were initiated by Ganaka Rishi. It was completed by other Munis, including the portions that had disappeared. This helped in spreading it to the people. Later on, they spread through Guru Shishya Parampara by establishing ashramas, and they taught them to so many people. This was adopted by the people during the medieval times. So this Swadharma, that was the first dharma that was adopted by this Vedic people. It was also adopted by the Vedic people. Earlier it was by the non-Vedikas, for which that Ganesha had established. The prince was born to Sati. He had established that Swadharma. This Swadharma was adopted by the people on the Vedic path also subsequently. So people living on earth began to experience joy by practicing these Vedas, by chanting of mantras. They energized them, and then they felt more and more happy. This medieval period lasted for 4,000 years. 4,000 heavenly years. Then 600 years later, Treta Yuga continued for another 1,000 years. This period extended from end of Kruta Yuga to half of Dwapara Yuga, and from the latter half of Dwapara to Kali Yuga. So this was the first. These years were calculated as heavenly years. Now remember, these are all heavenly years. So one day in a heavenly year itself, this one day itself is equal to 1 year of 360 days, 360 human days. Not the 1 year as 365, which we have now. So it was 360 days was a 1 year of a human. So 360 days was equal to 1 day. So 360 days. So 360 such days became 1 year of one heavenly year. So like that, the calculation was different. So in this particular period, at that in the initial stages were the heavenly years. Remember, subsequently only we started calculating according to the human years, when after this separation of heaven to gods, the Patal Loka for the demons, for humans, the earth for human beings, then only this classification based on human years started applying to the cosmos as such. So between the medieval period and Kali Yuga, there were all these Danavas such as Devantak, Narantak, and all of them were killed due to destruction of so towards the end of this transition period, then after that period, after Devantak and Narantak, yogis from 7 continents on the earth, they prayed to a group, they prayed together for establishment of Vedic path once again, because all the yajna karmas were destroyed, Vedas were destroyed, knowledge had disappeared, and so those who were left, the yogis, they prayed and they offered puja and worship. So they went to the gods for helping them out. They did yajna karmas, they went to Ganesha and prayed to him. They did intense tapas, and Vinayaka took birth as Ganesha, and now he took birth as Ganesha in whose house? In Kashyapa's son, Kashyapa Rishi's son as Ganesha. So Ganesha performed several leelas there as Kashyapa's son, and also killed Devantaka and Naratak. Under his orders, yogis went to the 7 continents on earth. They established the Vedic path. But at that time, when Ganesha took birth as Kashyapa's son, when Vedas were restored in on earth, that Kashyapa's son, Ganesha, he concealed whatever the world that was created earlier was concealed by this Kashyapa's son. That is why we don't have the records of the Kruta Yuga, that earlier period of 6,400 heavenly years. That entire period was concealed, was wiped out. That is, he made everybody forget from the Smrutis. It was wiped out. Towards the end of the transition period, so now what we have records of all this Hiranyakashipu, Prahlada, and all this the Rakshasas, everything is after that period. So, towards the end of the transition period, an evil Daitya, Hiranyakashipu, was born out of a boon granted by Brahma. We know that for killing of the Hiranyakashipu, Vishnu had to take the Narsimha avatar, and he killed this Hiranyakashipu, who also ruled for a long, long period of time on earth. In those days, these Daityas also had long age, they lived a long period of time. After his killing, a victory yatra was undertaken by Ganaka Rishi along with Munishwaras for re-establishment of the Vedas. So just before the final phase of the Treta Yuga, a Danava named Mahishasura took birth. Now we all know Mahishasura also. We have studied the Shaktis in the Shakti philosophy or Shakti Puranas, Devi Mahatmyam. We have seen, and Mahishasura. And also in Shiva Purana, also in all Puranas we come across this story, because all gods contributed in fighting this in their own respective way, and so this story will appear in all Puranas. This evil Daitya created havoc among the people. To kill this Danava, Parashakti incarnated as Durga, a powerful incarnation. The killing by Amba, that is Amba, Mudgala incarnated. After that only, Mudgala incarnated for establishing the Vedas on earth. Because of this Mahishasura, again the Vedas got destroyed. Then Mudgala Acharya, this was in Treta Yuga. He was an embodiment of knowledge itself. Towards the middle of Treta Yuga, during the transition period, there was the Sindhurasur who came into being. And for killing this Sindur, the Sindur also lived for a long period of time. He was born due to a boon given by Surya, and he won over the entire universe. This Daitya put all the gods into prison and ruled over the three worlds. Along with other Daityas, he enjoyed everything in the heavens, earth, Patal Loka, all over the place he was ruling. All dharmas were destroyed. Munis and Rishis moved to the Dandakaranya forest along with Shambhu. The benevolent Ganesha then incarnated as Shiva's son. This was when Ganesha was incarnated to Parvati and Shiva, and he is the one whose head was cut off by Shiva, and he got an elephant's trunk. And this Ganesha was the one who was appointed as Brahmanaspati Ganesha, whom we worship as Brahmanaspati Ganesha. Now he also, in that incarnation, he went and he asked Shiva and Parvati and to take him to this where Raja Varenya lived, and he was put. Raja Varena's story appears in the Ganesh Gita, where he asked him to be taken to the palace of King Varenya, who ruled in the area of Mahishmati, and he was asked to put near that Pushpika, who was wife of Queen of King Varenya, and he, but seeing him with all this 4 hands and everything, they got frightened and were left him near the river, where a rishi picked him up, and he was nurtured and brought up, and he killed Sindhurasur at the age of 12. And then when that Sindhurasur was relieved from the earth, so the peace was once again established on earth. He gave Gandaki Nagar to Sindur and installed him there. With the defeat of Daitya clan, Vishnu Dharma, on orders of Ganapa, incarnated on earth and established the 4 branches of Vedas. Veda Prasthana Vidya was once again established after that. That was in Dwapara Yuga. In order to establish yoga and dharma, Ganesha incarnated as Shiva's son. He established himself in Mayuresh, that is in Morgaon in Maharashtra, as his permanent abode on earth. Towards the end of Dwapara Yuga, Ravana gained supremacy. He was proficient in Vedas but destroyed the Yajna karmas everywhere. He had acquired powers from Shambhu because he was blessed by Shambhu, being a devotee of Shiva. Vishnu himself incarnated as Rama to kill the Rakshasa. Now here when it is mentioned Dwapara Yuga, this Dwapara Yuga is of the cosmic Dwapara Yuga, not of the present Dwapara Yuga. Ganaka Mahamuni had established Vedas in the beginning of Dwapara Yuga, but it was once again destroyed by the evil actions of Ravana, who had got immense powers from Shiva. He re-established Rakshasa's rule on earth. Then, under the orders of Ravana, the destroyers gained prominence at the beginning of Dwapara Yuga. Vedas, dharma karmas created were also destroyed. Hence, in the beginning of medieval period, Chakru rose and Bhuvaneshwari incarnated to kill him and redeem the world from the Danavas, who had become strong due to powers given by Shiva himself. For benevolence of the people and establishment of dharma, Shiva gave orders to Mudgala to incarnate for establishment of Veda Marga on earth. First, it was the descending Dwapara, Treta, Satya Yuga, and then now ascending. So he incarnated as, which we saw in the last session, for ascending and then descending. So then he incarnated as Yogendra with disciples in Jambudvipa. In other Dvipas too, there were Yogendras. Narada was also a Yogendra. So many Yogendras were established. That is, those who follow the path of yoga. Those singularly following the path of yoga, devoted to Ganesha alone, they became Yogendras. Towards the latter half of Dwapara Yuga, Kali started having its impact. Sindur Daitya, who had got a boon from Brahma, was creating havoc in the whole of Brahmanda. Varnashrama Dharma was destroyed. Vedikas and all their learnings was destroyed. There was chaos among the people living in Jambudvip and they were driven away. Danavas came to occupy all the positions. They destroyed all the books, Vedas, Shastras and Puranas. People were thirsty everywhere. It appeared like a mirage. Now this period where the annihilation happened was through drought, complete barrenness. Places where animals once lived became barren. The whole world became dry with the passage of time. So that is how, when we see now the deserts, those were not there before. This was in this annihilation that this deserts appeared. Towards the end of Dwapara Yuga, Gananayaka incarnated as the son of King Varenya. Gajabhaktar got himself seated on Ailavrat, and from there he killed Danavas. Mahishmati himself came on earth for protection. Then Bhrugumuni came to earth to re-establish Vedic path in the Jambudvipa. A Daityendra by the name of Vidyavan was born of a boon from Brahma. So at the end of Dwapara Yuga, unfortunately, all knowledge was again destroyed on earth. So then Guneshwar had to incarnate as Uchishta Ganapati and to re-establish Varnashrama Dharma. Then when Varnashrama Dharma was established, to again reinstate the Vedas, Tapoloka residents, that is Rishis from Tapoloka, came to earth for undertaking various activities at the beginning of Kruta Yuga, ascending Kruta Yuga. At the time of the whole nature was bountiful and under control. There were 3 Varnas. With the passage of time, everything got wiped out. Then began towards the end of Kruta Yuga, the middle of Dwapara Yuga, Vedas and others. So end of every yuga, there is a depletion of the Vedas and it gets reinstated. So Vedas, even though it goes away, they are reinstated by the Rishis, Munis who come on earth and revive them. And this revival happens out of meditation, and through vision they able to remember from the memory, from the remembrance, the knowledge is reinstated. So then, for the benevolence of the earth, in Dwapar Yuga, towards the end of Dwapar Yuga, before the beginning of Kali Yuga, Vishnu incarnated as Vyasa, and he categorized the Shastras, Veda Shastras, and Puranas, and Itihasas, and everything. And so once again reinstated everything. And Vaidikas also was found, but then it was only in the Bharatavarsha. This was there only in Bharatavarsha until Janamejaya. Then all kings of the Jambudvipa became Kshatriyas. Krishna had destroyed every region except Bharatavarsha. Those who went to the other lands did not have the Vedic knowledge, but they practiced. They followed the non-Vedic paths. Some places there was Varnashrama Dharmas. Sometimes in places there was Mishra Marga. Then in the beginning of Kali Yuga, Varnashrama was based on the 4 Vidyas, which was existing only in Bharatavarsha, only here. So even people from other lands, when they came to India, they studied the Vedas and took whatever they learned to their respective places, and there it was those who spread it got, some people practiced it there. People speaking different languages also included those who condemned the Vedas. Towards the end of Kali Yuga, with passage of time, everything will become quite ordinary. So means this is it's a broad vision broad look or glance into the passage of time from, we can almost classify it time immemorial. When we say time immemorial in an ordinary essay, it looks very strange. It looks somewhere in the past. But then when we really look into time immemorial, this is what is time immemorial, where even everything was lost from memory also, which was God himself removed some portion from memory. And then what we have is only of Kruta Yuga, Dwapar Yuga, Treta Yuga, Dwapar Yuga, Kali Yuga, which was again divided into Kruta Yuga, Treta Yuga, Dwapar Yuga, and Kali Yuga. Okay, so then we have all what is presently, whatever is available is the knowledge from that. So this is an answer to question of the Munis to Brahma. Remember, this was Brahma Deva. Before this, Ganesha was given the position of Ganesha Brahmanaspati. Brahmanaspati as as the Lord of the 5 Ishwaras. So initially, all earlier that Brahma was the Brahma. Now when we look into all Brahma, we make that Brahma as Pitamaha, grandfather. Because this Ganesha Brahma born to Shiva and Parvati became established as the first worshipped or Deshta Raja, and he was established as the Ganesha Brahmanaspati. With this we conclude the session. Jai Gajanan.